Hey everyone, welcome back to Therapy and the Soft Life. I'm your host, Asia, and as always, thank you for being here. If you're new to this space, the Soft Life is all about slowing down, healing gently, and building a life that feels peaceful and grounded from the inside out. So today's episode is very personal to me. It's called Grace for the Girl You Were. And I'll be honest, this is one that I've been sitting with for a while because it's not just about healing your past or forgiving yourself for what you didn't know. It's about really meeting the version of yourself that had to survive before she ever got the chance to feel safe. It's for the girl who loved hard but didn't love herself enough yet, or the girl who stayed when she knew it was time to go, or the girl who reacted from pain, who said things she didn't mean, who didn't know how to ask for what she needed, so she settled for what was given. And I just want y'all to know that girl still deserves grace. And this episode is for her. I think a lot of us spend so much time trying to prove that we change that we forget to thank the versions of us that carried everything before we had the tools to do it better. We love to talk about growth, but we rarely talk about gentleness. We rarely pause long enough to say, hey, thank you for getting me here. Because without her, the messy, reactive, emotional, unhealed version, there wouldn't even be a healed version. When I think about the girl I used to be, there's this mix of gratitude and sadness. Gratitude because she's the reason I'm standing here, and sadness because I know how hard she was trying to hold it all together. I think about how I used to stay in relationships long after they stopped feeling safe or nourishing because I convinced myself that leaving meant failing. Or maybe because a part of me thought that if I just tried harder or loved deeper or fixed things more, then things would finally change. I used to confuse love with endurance. I thought that the more I could withstand, the more it proved my loyalty. But all it really did was teach me how to abandon myself quietly. And now when I look back, I can finally say, Asia, I forgive you for that. I didn't know what peace looked like yet. And that's what you have to tell yourself in these moments. And that's how you show yourself grace. There were times when I reacted out of hurt instead of honesty. I would say things I didn't mean just to protect my pride or because deep down I didn't know how to say you hurt me. It's hard to admit that sometimes the pain you caused was your way of surviving pain that was done to you. Back then, I thought control was protection. I thought that if I could have the last word, I wouldn't feel powerless. But healing taught me that peace doesn't need to win the argument, it just needs to walk away without bitterness. I've had moments where I looked back and felt embarrassed by the ways I used to show up, or the times I over explained, the times I begged people to understand me, the times I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. But those moments were never about weakness. They were about wanting connection so deeply that I was willing to lose myself to keep it. And you can't shame yourself for that, because when you didn't know what healthy love looked like, survival looked like attachment. It looked like holding on. Grace for the girl you were means remembering that she didn't know any different. She didn't have the words for boundaries yet. She didn't know that love could be calm. She thought that chaos meant passion. She thought that being needed meant being loved. And now that I'm older, now that I've been in therapy and taken accountability and practiced stillness, I understand her so much more now. I see why she reacted the way she did. I see why she tried to fix things that were never hers to fix. And I see how tired she was. There's something really humbling about realizing that your strongest seasons were also your loneliest. Because when you're in survival mode, you don't stop to grieve what it cost you. You just keep moving. But eventually your body catches up, and so does your heart. There's a version of me that I used to resent, the one who kept reaching for people I should have released, or the one who overshared when I felt unseen, the one who sought closure from people who were never going to give it. But now I look at her and think, of course you did. You were just trying to understand why love kept hurting. And that's what healing has given me. Understanding, not excuses, not denial, just understanding. And most of all, grace. I think about all the times I said things I didn't mean out of defensiveness. Moments when my tone came from fear, not anger. Or moments when I hurt people I actually cared about because I didn't have the tools to communicate what I really felt. That's something people don't talk about enough. The guilt that comes with growth, the grief that comes with realizing you caused pain while you were still learning how not to. And yet, even that deserves grace because healing means taking accountability and allowing yourself to be human. And that's what I've learned. Grace isn't about forgetting what you did, it's about remembering why you did it and giving that version of yourself compassion instead of criticism. When I look back, I can finally say, I forgive her for not walking away sooner. I forgive her for speaking from pain. I forgive her for thinking she had to prove her worth through struggle because she didn't know peace like I do now. She didn't know that she was allowed to be soft. She didn't know that love could be still. And I think we spend so much of our lives trying to be better that we forget to thank the parts of us that were just trying to survive. But the girl I was showed up anyway. She got through every heartbreak, every loss, every night of overthinking. And she's the reason I'm able to sit here now, speaking softer, loving calmer, and moving slower. She built this version of me, and for that, I owe her gratitude. I've also learned that grace doesn't erase what happened, it redeems it. It turns regret into wisdom and shame into softness. And honestly, that's what this whole healing thing is about. It's not about becoming perfect, but it's more so about learning how to hold every version of yourself with love. So maybe today, instead of replaying what you should have done differently, you can try something new. You can look back at that girl, the one who tried so hard, and just whisper, "Thank you. You did your best, but I've got it from here." That is what I mean when I say have grace. There came a point in my healing where I realized I was always trying to fix myself. Every time I slipped into an old habit, whether that be raising my voice or getting defensive or shutting down instead of opening up, I would immediately spiral into guilt. I would tell myself, "You should know better by now." But one day in therapy, my therapist said something that changed so much. She said, "Asia, awareness is progress too. You don't need to punish yourself for recognizing what you used to ignore." And I just sat there because for the first time, I realized that healing isn't about never reacting again. It's about noticing it faster and softening sooner and repairing it with grace. I think back to the girl who used to react out of pain. If something triggered me, I would shut down or say something harsh and then spend hours replaying it in my head. But what I didn't understand back then was that my reactions weren't just anger, they were fear. And that was fear of being misunderstood, or fear of being unseen, or fear of being hurt again. I was protecting myself in the only way I knew how, through defense. But Grace taught me how to pause. It taught me how to ask, what's underneath this reaction? It taught me how to realize that most of my frustration wasn't about that one moment. It was about years of not feeling safe expressing myself. I remember there was a relationship I stayed in way too long. And looking back, I can see that I wasn't staying because I believed things would change. I was staying because leaving meant that I was settling that whole time. I didn't want to face that truth. I didn't want to see myself as the girl who ignored red flags or accepted half love. But Grace helped me rewrite that story. Now I can look back and say, you stayed because you believed in love. You stayed because you were loyal to your hope. And that doesn't make me foolish, it makes me human. And it also taught me that love should never require me to abandon myself to keep it. I remember one argument that taught me so much about emotional maturity. I was so hurt, and instead of saying that, I said something harsh, something I knew would sting and hurt that person. And the second the words left my mouth, I felt it. I felt like that heavy guilt feeling in my chest. And the old me would have spiraled, but that time I paused and breathed and said, that came from a place of hurt, and I'm sorry. That was the first time I experienced what grace actually feels like in real time. It's not just forgiving your past, but it's also catching yourself mid pattern and choosing peace instead of pride. Grace looks like accountability without condemning yourself. It's not pretending you didn't mess up. It's saying, I did, but I can do better next time. It's giving yourself the same compassion you would give a friend who's learning. Because the truth is, you're still learning. We all are. And healing isn't a finish line. I know I say that all the time, but it's so true. Healing isn't a finish line, it's a rhythm. Some days you'll move gently, and some days you'll stumble. But if you keep showing up with honesty, the soft days start to outnumber the hard ones. There's also something really freeing about realizing that growth doesn't mean you'll never be triggered again. It just means you recognize your triggers sooner and you handle them with more care. You don't explode anymore, you learn to express. You don't chase closure, you create it. You don't run from discomfort, you breathe through it. And that's grace in action. That's choosing understanding over reaction. I've had to learn that being gentle with myself doesn't mean letting myself off the hook. It means holding myself accountable with compassion instead of cruelty. I can say, I shouldn't have said that, but I can also say, I understand why I did. Those two things can coexist. And that's what we call emotional maturity. And I think that's where I am now. I'm learning how to practice softness in real time, not just looking back and saying, I forgive her, but saying, I forgive me right now for still figuring it out. Because every version of me, past, present, and the one still becoming, deserves that same gentle understanding. If you're listening to this and you're still learning to be gentle with yourself, please hear me when I say this. It's okay to not have mastered it yet. You don't have to earn forgiveness by being perfect. You just have to keep showing up with awareness and with effort and with softness. You are allowed to be proud of the progress no one else sees. You are allowed to forgive yourself mid sentence, mid journey, mid healing. That's where grace begins, right there in the messy middle. These days, grace feels different. It's quieter. It's not something I talk about as much anymore. It's something I try to live. I think for a long time I thought grace meant saying, it's fine, it's in the past. But now it's more than that. Grace means I can remember my mistakes without flinching. I can look back at old versions of myself and not feel embarrassed. It means I can hold more compassion for myself. It means I can tell my story without sugarcoating or shame. Because every part of it, the mistakes, the missteps, the lessons, shape the woman I'm becoming. I'm learning that peace doesn't come from pretending you've always had it together. Peace comes from knowing that even when you didn't, you were still worthy of love. Grace for the girl I was means I don't judge her anymore for staying too long. She stayed because she believed in people. She saw the best in them. She wanted to give chances because she wished someone would have given one to her. And that's not weakness, that's heart. And I never want to lose that part of myself, even as I get stronger. Grace also means forgiving myself for the times I didn't show up as my best, or the times I let anger speak before my heart could, and the times I said things out of pain that didn't sound like love. Because I can look back now and say, you were hurting, but you were still learning. And that's something we forget. Healing doesn't mean you never hurt again. It just means you don't let your hurt control the narrative anymore. So now, I try to pause before reacting. I try to breathe. I ask myself, is this response coming from my peace or from my pain? And when I get it wrong, because I still do sometimes, I don't spiral into guilt anymore. I reflect, I repair, and I move forward. And that's having grace. It's funny when I think about my younger self now. She doesn't feel so far away. I can still feel her, the version of me who wanted to be chosen, the one who tried to fix everything, the one who never felt like she was enough. She still lives inside me, but instead of running from her, I talk to her. When I'm anxious, I tell her we're safe now. When I start overthinking, I tell her you don't have to perform anymore. It's okay. When I catch myself people pleasing, I remind her you're already loved. That's what integration looks like. healing the relationship between who you were and who you are now. It's not about silencing the old versions of you, it's about showing them that they can finally rest. I think grace is the softest form of power. It's this quiet confidence that says, I can love every version of me, even the messy ones. It's the peace that comes from knowing that your healing didn't make you perfect, it just made you whole. You start realizing you don't need to over explain your growth anymore. You don't need to prove how much you change. Your peace speaks for itself. You can walk into spaces that once triggered you and stay calm. You can see someone from your past and not feel that sting anymore. You can look in the mirror and genuinely like the person staring back at you, not because she's flawless, but because she's real. And that is grace. There's something beautiful about reaching a place in your healing where you can say, I love the woman I am now, and I also love the girl who had to crawl her way here. Because that girl fought for this version of you. She's the reason you're softer, wiser, and more grounded. She's the reason you even know what grace feels like. So instead of running from her, celebrate her, honor her, thank her. If you take anything from this episode, I hope it's this. You don't have to be ashamed of your becoming. You don't have to punish yourself for the things you did when you were still learning love and safety. You can let grace rewrite that story. You can say, I forgive myself, I honor myself, I love every version of me that survived. And you can mean it, because grace is what turns survival into softness. It's what turns pain into peace. It's what lets you rest in who you become without resenting who you were. Thank you so much for spending this time with me on therapy and the soft life. If this episode resonated with you, take a moment after it ends to check in with that younger version of you, the one who tried so hard. Tell her she did enough. Tell her she's safe now. Tell her she can finally rest. And if you haven't yet, be sure to follow Therapy and the Soft Life on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and connect with me on Instagram for more soft reflections like this one. Until next time, keep choosing peace, keep choosing grace, and keep loving every version of you that made it here. Talk to you soon.